All right. Hey there everyone, Hitesh here, back again with another live. This is one of those another awesome live where we bring out some of the folks, some of the people who have actually done some great contribution. Forever the coding community is to the debt of their contribution. That's how the entire programming world works. We like to contribute, we like to help each other out. And today's guest needed no introduction at all. Let me bring him up here. The man with the great mustache, the man with the great contribution. So, welcome, Sebastian.
Thank you very much. That was such an introduction. Thank you very much for inviting me, and hello everyone.
So, it's really great and fantastic, first of all, to have you on board here. It's such an honor to meet you in person, like virtually, obviously. But really, thank you so much. So, first of all, from the entire, on behalf of the entire community of the coders, a big thanks that I would like to extend you, especially not just for the fast API, but amazing amount of contribution that you have given. Last time I counted, I guess 36 of the open source contribution, the repositories, the packages that you have allowed everyone to use. So thank you so much for the great contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm glad those tools are being useful. So it's super cool.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Audio and everything looks perfect, and we are getting great. Okay, so guys, if you have any question or something, you can just ask them in the chat itself. I'll try to just get up all up here, and we'll start with the questionnaire section. First of all, Sebastian, a bit of a question. Before a lot of traction got to you, before the Fast API, what were you doing in your day-to-day life?
Before FastAPI, so the thing is that like all of the things that I have been doing before that are what ended up in FastAPI, what led to FastAPI. So before I was working at, I'm from Colombia, South America. That's why the accent. I was working at a company in South America, and I was working with a team of developers, and I was just trying to build products with the teams that I was working with. They were mainly data products, applying machine learning to big data sets and distributed systems, and like making that work and iterating on many different types of products. And because of that, and because I was in one of these super fast moving startups, we ended up building a lot of tools and products that required solving some of the same steps at some points. And I was trying to optimize how that was done, and I was trying to make it easier for the developers that I was leading, for the developers that were working with me. And I wanted to make it easier for them to have best practices by default, and to have a very good developer experience that will help them and guide them and avoid mistakes and things like that. I was trying to so that the thing that I was doing was actually trying a lot of different frameworks and tools and things and approaches to try to achieve this. And I was avoiding building something like FastAPI for a long time. But all this learning, using all these frameworks, all these tools, all these ideas, even different programming languages, all those learnings are what ended up leading to FastAPI itself. So it was a bunch of these. This workflow of developing data products with machine learning and distributed systems with different teams, that across different companies, and like in different regions of the world, that ended up leading to finally at some point ended up in FastAPI.
Ah, nice. Good to know. So you were on to building a lot of things, but never actually packaged it up and rolled it out.
Yeah, exactly. So I was the thing is that I was building just products for companies. It was not even open source. I think like the first thing that I made in open source was that I was using a tool, and the tool had a problem, and I was trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, because in most of the cases the problem is from the actual user, from the developer. But after trying a lot, I ended up checking out the source code and realizing that it was actually not a problem in what I was doing, but a problem in the tool. And I ended up checking out the source code, and I ended up fixing it, and I just contributed it back. And then the author, like the first big thing, well, I probably contributed a little typos or things like that in other places, But that project, the author said like, hey, I'm not actually not working on this, so you take over, and now I recommend your fork. So it was my fork the main thing for doing that. It was a very niche use case, but it was something that I ended up solving for myself and contributing to others. I ended up being useful to other people. So it was very strange and rewarding to feel like, hey, I made something that is useful for others, and like
It is still
people
useful.
around
Right
the
now,
world.
Aman is commenting in the chat section that I work at a startup, and that startup is backend is totally on FastAPI.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But like the first thing that I did was just like very small projects, very small things. At some point, what was kind of big was a Docker image for deploying Flask applications in Docker. There was no standard guideline for how to do these things, and it was even before Kubernetes and even before these orchestration systems and all that stuff. And I just studied all these tools and all these ideas, and like, how do you combine Unicorn with how do you combine, actually it was USGI with Nginx and with Flask, and how do you put all that together and all those configurations, and how do you set up all that stuff. That is a lot of stuff that you will normally have to learn, and I just tried to automatize that in a Docker image. So it was a very simple thing, but I just put the thing. I was trying to solve a problem, and I was putting the solution that I made available for everyone and just explaining how to use it. And I think that is the key recipe for all the things that I have built. I have always been just trying to solve a problem that is important for me in some way, and hopefully important for others, and that like I care deeply, and that I know how I will be satisfied with a solution. And I'm just trying to make that thing happen, and then I make it available for others to just use it, and then it ends up being useful. Even like even with articles, like just writing a blog post, how to do this or that. I didn't find a way to do that, and I ended up just like uh, studying a lot about that particular topic, and then just summarizing like what are the key steps, or what are the ideas that are important for this, and then just like how to solve this particular problem, and then sharing that, and that ended up being useful for a lot of people. So I think like the main key for the things that I have built that have been useful and successful, let's say, is that I have been focused on solving a particular problem that is important to me, and then pursuing that and making it
One
available
problem
for
at a
others.
time.
Yes.
Okay. I have one question that I picked up from the LinkedIn. It's from Nabhaya Jyoti. It says, when will the migration will be released in SQLModel so that FastAPI can become all-in-one framework for Python?
So the thing with SQL model or SQL model, SQL model is based on Pydantic and SQLAlchemy. So everything in SQLAlchemy, and the actual work is done by SQLAlchemy. The work with communicating with SQL databases is done by SQLAlchemy. So you can actually already use Alembic and it will work. The thing is that I haven't documented it yet. I want to document it and explain it very well, and try to add a little bit of small layers that will simplify using it. I just haven't done that yet. But like
So
speaking
it's
of this,
already possible. You just haven't guided people how to do it.
yeah, exactly. And it's also this idea of focusing on a problem and trying to solve it. It also happens a lot that in many cases one particular problem depends on something else that needs to be solved first. So then I end up focusing on that previous thing that needs to be solved. And maybe that requires something else that needs to be solved. So I ended up focusing on that little thing first. For example, for SQLAlchemy and for the advanced guide and the advanced features like the migration tools, that will depend on Typer, which is the other library I built for building command line applications. So I wanted to improve and fix a bunch of things in Typer, and to improve the way that the help, the automatic help is built. So now Typer has integration with Rich, so you can have beautiful help menus and things like that by default. So I ended up spending a little bit more time on Typer before jumping to SQL Model, because SQL Model will depend on that. And the same way, solving different issues and different problems that are not even in my projects, but in external projects like NEIO or Trio, or that there are the libraries that handle async and await underneath, and that are not even like I'm not even the owner of those libraries, but I needed to solve that to be able to solve other issues that will come afterwards. So I end up just like trying to focus on the thing that will have the biggest impact and that will unlock a bunch of different things later. The same with, for example, I have a project generator to generate full stack projects with FastAPI, and by currently it uses SQL Alchemy. I created SQLModel to use it in that project, but I haven't migrated the project to SQLModel because I want to first do other things in SQLModel so that it can have like all the features and all the ideas. So it's like always trying to, to make all
Lego
these.
pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Lego pieces or like a pyramid or different pieces, and I have to find all the building blocks and put them in place. But in many cases,
And
all
some
these
of those
building
were
blocks are
building blocks
useful.
were already built by you in the past, and now you're just bringing them up.
Yeah, exactly. Or I built them in the past, but they require a little fine tuning or improvement. Or in many cases, in most of the cases, most of the tools I built, they are all built on other building blocks made by other people. For example, FastAPI is just Starlet with Pydantic, and both of them combined with a bunch of extra features like OpenAPI and JSON schema and authentication and integrations and like dependencies and like a bunch of little details on top. But all the work for the web is done by Starlet. All the work for data validation and processing is done by Pydantic. And the same with all the other tools that I have built. It's always building on top of excellent tools
I have
and
even seen
libraries that
your
already
I
exist.
have even seen your conversation with the Pydantic team. Seems like you are a great fan of the team, and in fact, FastAPI, if I'm not wrong, uses a lot of Pydantic.
Yeah. FastAPI is based on Pydantic. So all the work processing data is actually done by Pydantic. And like FastAPI was built around Pydantic. In fact, when I was building FastAPI, the first thing that I did was actually contribute to Pydantic and Starlet because I needed a couple of extra things in those two libraries, in those two tools, to be able to combine them together. The version of Pydantic that existed had some generation of schema of the models that was a schema that would define what is the data, but it was not JSON schema. It was not the standard JSON schema. And I needed it to be the standard JSON schema so that I could integrate that into the other standard that is OpenAPI. So I contributed that, and like I refactored all that stuff to be able to have a standards-based schema definition for the models, so that I could then reuse it in OpenAPI and put all that in FastAPI. So it's like all these building blocks that do all the hard work, and in some cases it just needs a little bit of helping those tools to be able to use them for the next piece that will go in the pyramid of tools that are built on each other.
Nice, nice. There are also three chats here. All of them are kind of integrated with each other. I like to read them out, and I think you can answer them best. The first one is from Adramanov. He says, "Yeah, Fast API docs really the best." Then Shubham says the Swagger support is really cool. Then rest in Flask, and then the next one says fast API documentation is so good that I made entire robust, scalable auth system just by reading and trying. Thanks for your contribution and other efforts. So, how did you make the fast API documentation so good? What tools you used and what approach you used in them?
Thank you very much for the kind words, everyone. I think one of the main things with the documentation in FastAPI, and also like one of the main features, let's say, of FastAPI is actually the documentation, how everything is explained and how everything is made. I had a very clear objective that I wanted to make it as easy as possible to learn and to use and to get started. And I wanted things to be explained in the way that I wanted them that I wanted they were explained to me when I was starting to code. When I was just learning, okay, how do you build a web API, or like what even that is that, or like how do you do that? I wanted things, I would have liked to have all those concepts explained very clearly. Even just like the concepts about APIs and HTTP that are not necessarily relevant to the code itself, but are concepts that are needed. I wanted to explain all that and to make it easy for everyone to approach the tool. I also wanted to have a very good developer experience, so I wanted to be able to get auto completion in the editor for everything, and I wanted to have that for myself. But then that also meant that there are some pieces in the internal code that require additional effort in maintenance.
I think
Uh,
this exact your thought process is being by conveyed because Tushar here says, I always felt that someone was explaining to me in person when I was reading the docs. So I think that goal of yours is achieved.
Nice. That's so cool. That's so good to hear because that's really what I wanted, to be able to have something that was like explained that didn't expect you to know a lot of things, and that at least didn't try to make you feel like you should have known a lot of things, but that tried to explain things in a simple way and in a functional and practical way. That was one of the main things that I wanted. I think the other key to the way that I built the documentation is that it was also similar to the approach to solving problems, that I wanted to explain some particular concept, and in many cases this concept needed some terms or some concepts or some ideas that I had not explained before, and that they were not necessarily obvious, or not necessarily I couldn't assume that people would know them. So then it would make sense to explain those things first. So then I will end up, I don't know, like writing some piece of documentation and then realizing that I need to write this other piece of documentation first, because the information is that people won't have the information yet. And that helped me, guiding me how to write all the documentation and how to make it as easy to approach as possible, and like a gradual step by step. Like the FastAPI documentation is written in a way that is like a tutorial that you can just like follow chapter by chapter and learn everything that is there to be learned about FastAPI, and also a bunch of things about coding and APIs and security and little things that come up whenever something is being explained. It was not made just like a dry explanation of what each function does, but a guide to help you. Also, and that's also a particular important thing. There's always the objective in the documentation of making the developer or the reader achieve something, of how to build something in particular, how to read data from this place. And it's always like, I always try to make the example something that will feel sensible, not make try to not make examples that are don't make sense, but just to explain how this piece in the code works, because then it's not necessarily obvious why would you do that. But when there's an example that shows, okay, this is why you will need this,
A
and this is
use
how
case
you do
basis,
it.
a kind of a case study.
Exactly. Yes, like a use case. So I think those things combined, all those things combined, are what ended up like helping me focus and guide how to write the documentation. And then on the other hand, I had excellent tools to write the code. Documentation for FastAPI uses MakeDocs. That is a framework for writing documentation that just requires a YAML file and a bunch of markdown files.
So
And then it
what tool you
uses
used actually?
It's MakeDocs, MKDocs.
MK
And then,
Docs. Oh, that's
yeah, and
nice.
then I use Material for MKDocs, which is an extension that adds all the prettiness, all the beautiful aesthetics, and a bunch of extensions and things that help me have a lot of more richer tools to show the content and to explain things. So I feel like in many cases, writing the documentation, I have much more tools to explain things than what I will have, for example, if I was writing a book or something like that. I can show code snippets. And for example, in FastAPI, most of the all the code snippets that are shown, or like, I don't know, 99% or something, the code snippets that are shown in the documentation are actually Python files that are injected inside of the documentation. And most of those files are actually run in the tests. So I can make sure that the examples in the documentation actually work, and then people can just like copy and paste and run it, and it will work because it's been tested in CI. If I change something in FastAPI and the documentation becomes obsolete, then it will break. The tests will break, and then that will help me realize, oh, I have to fix this in the documentation, and I have to fix the explanation and all that. So I think like all those ideas combined together have led to I think a useful documentation for FastAPI and also for the other projects.
And I can see in the documentation directly as well. Directly dark mode, developers first.
Nice.
Okay. Let me bring up some question because a lot of interesting question came on my Instagram as well. So I actually ran and asked me anything on Instagram, but on your behalf. So kind of ask me anything that I can ask to Sebastian. So there are a few good questions as well. So kind of a rapid fire. again, the first question was, what was the real motivation behind building FastAPI? To build a better product, I guess you have already answered that in very detail, so I can say we can skip
Yeah.
that. Okay, what's that one problem that was dealt while making the FastAPI? So what was the one problem that you faced and how you overcome that? Just a kind of incident?
Uh,
Where did you got stuck while building it?
there were several things because I was trying to put together a bunch of different features. It was not one single feature, but a bunch of different features together. I think one of the hardest parts for me when building FastAPI, well, first before building FastAPI was a lot of learning about the standards behind, because FastAPI is built on
Yeah.
top of standards. So learning a lot about OpenAPI, JSON schema, all those standards, like the text in those standards is quite it's a brick. It's quite
It's a
difficult to
separate
read.
learning journey altogether. No coding,
Yeah,
just
so
how to standardize things.
learning all that took quite some effort, and like studying it and
That's definitely one
rereading
hell of
it.
a challenge to make sure that it's standardized everywhere.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing that was quite challenging was understanding how Pydantic works underneath, because Pydantic is an amazing library, and when you use it, is the developer experience is amazing. But all the work that it does underneath, all the black magic and the tricks and the way that it interacts with how Python works itself, it's mind bending. It's really really complex. I
I've
remember
just
I
jumped
was
once into Pydantic, and again, man, the amount of effort that has been put up into that code, these guys are inspiration, true inspirations. I agree on that part.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And like I remember checking the code and seeing that it even used some parts of the objects in Python and how they work that are not even documented in the Python documentation. They are only in the source code for Python itself, and like how that interacts with type annotations and all that stuff. And like, yeah, I don't know, it was quite challenging. And I think I was expecting that it was not going to work, because I was not going to be able to understand all that. But yeah, in the end, everything worked.
Okay, there are a couple of good questions as well. The first one says, why you chose to make a framework in Python? Ah, interesting.
So I see in Python instead of, for example, Golang or Java or some other compiled language or something like that, right?
Yeah.
When I was before building FastAPI, I was trying to find a framework that did what I wanted to have. And I was trying to find it on all the languages I could find, in Python, in TypeScript, in Java, in Go, and there was no tool that was already doing that. And Python is one of the most productive languages that you can find. It might not be as fast as, like, I don't know, if you write something in C, but or maybe if you write something in Golang that is optimized and well compiled and everything. But the productivity that you can get, the speed at which you can have new features and create products with Python is amazing, is massive. And now with type annotations, you can also have a very high confidence that the code is correct and that there are no hidden simple bugs
No,
in the
no
code.
surprises.
Exactly. And you have all the integrations. For Python is used for everything, for all types of tools and all types of workloads, for
Agree.
web
Just somebody needs
applications.
to build a framework that we can produce a mobile apps, and I think that's it.
Yes, yes,
Somebody needs to
totally.
build a framework that we can push mobile app code, just like React Native or something, get the bridges done,
Yeah.
and the bridges get interpreted into the mobile APIs, and I think let's call it a day.
Yeah, and there's actually already people working on that. There's the Beware project, and now they got like extra funding for working on all that stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting times to
Yeah,
work with Python.
there was already one kind of a framework which got a little bit popular in like 4 or 5 years ago. That was in Python for building mobile apps. Somehow the developers lose their interest. There was not enough funding, so they lost it. I think Bework is one of them now, which is trying
Yeah.
that same thing. But hopefully, let's see, 2, 3 more needs to come out.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, another fun question. Your mustache care routine. Hmm.
My mustache car routine. That's a funny question. No, it's just hair gel. It's just that.
Is it inspired by Dali?
It's fun. It was actually inspired by my grandpa.
Ah, nice.
My grandfather, when he was like, I don't know, I think 70 something, he decided, oh, I want to learn to paint. He was a very cool guy, because like he was doing a lot of things throughout his life, but then he decided, I want to learn to paint, and now I'm gonna grow a mustache. I imagine he copied from Dali, but then I was just like copying him. I was just like, this is fun, let's just try it.
Let's
And
try that.
I was just doing it for fun. I think it was just like kind of as a joke, but now I think I cannot take it.
Now this is your
Oh,
identity, man. Come on.
yeah,
A lot of people know you because of your mustache, and if you just
yeah,
remove the mustache, it would be hard to find you in the crowd now. Isn't
yeah.
that
That's
special?
true. That's true. Now that they are finally making in-person events and like doing conferences and things like that again. And then like I went to one of those, but it was everyone with a mask, so you cannot recognize anyone. And I was like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, another fun question. I think only you are the person on this planet who can answer this question. So it says a solution to recruiters asking for 8+ years of experience with FastAPI. How to deal with that?
That's a fun. Is that like I don't know? It was when was that? I think it was 2 3 years ago that I saw a job post that said that they required. I think it was 4 years of experience of FastAPI at that time, and like I tweeted something saying that I saw this job post, but I can't apply because I only have 2.5 years since I created the thing. So maybe it's time to reevaluate that thing, that idea that the skill level is the same as the experience in years. And like when I was about to post that, I thought like it's not even that funny, but like yeah, well, whatever, let's just post it.
You broke the internet with that tweet.
Yeah, and it went viral. It was very fun. I still get a lot of notifications and retweets and screenshots for that. It's like, yeah, well, it was fun.
Yeah. Even you are not eligible for that job.
Yeah, no, still not. And now they are making jobs that require like 5 or 6 years, so they keep increasing the time. So I still cannot apply.
The problem is, we have actually seen this problem. But what happens is actually it's not, to be honest, their fault, because the people who are into talent recruit or the HR, they are just getting a JD. So the developers get them a brief overview that I need a person with 4 or 5 years of experience and maybe a little knowledge with fast API. So they kind of merge that hey, a 5 or 6 year experience with fast API. So that was a misinterpretation, and we have actually solved that kind of a problem with one of our product that we are now figuring it out. It's known as Find Coder, because what we have realized is a lot of people which are getting hired through the non-tech people. And that is
Okay.
not one of the great way to hire tech talent. Tech talent is unique itself. They are not very much great communicator itself. You need to judge them based on their code, which you cannot jump into the GitHub and can explore them. You need to host hackathons and online challenges so that they can show you by building something and can show their expertise directly. So that's what we are targeting now with Find Coder.
Nice, nice. That's very cool. That's very cool because I feel like one of the main problems with that is that people say, "Oh, we need a mid developer or senior developer or something like that," and at some point in the line, someone decided that senior is equal to these many years of experience. So
Yeah.
5 years of experience is senior. Otherwise, it's not senior. And I think that idea is very fixed in the industry
That
and
is
is
not how
quite
developers works.
wrong.
You cannot call any developer a fresher or a non-fresher. Maybe he hasn't got a chance to work in a company, but he was so involved in open source project and his own work that he has pushed down maybe 30 projects on his own. Just because he doesn't have experience in working in a company, you cannot call him a fresher. He might be working on his own. He is not a fresher to code.
Yeah, and at the same time, someone that has been working for 10 years might have been working with an old framework for 10 years that no new product would use. And then like all that experience is actually experience with a tool that is not the tool that is going to be used. And then that person will have to learn the new ideas and the new tools. Everyone will have to keep learning. That like we developers have to be learning all the time. I keep learning and realizing how little I know and how much I have to learn, and that's for everyone. So like you say, it should be like those assessments should be based on how people are being able to solve problems, not how many years they were sitting at a desk in front of a computer. That's not how you judge if someone can do a good job or not.
That would be. This reminds me one other thing that I would like to ask you here in public as well. So since we are working quite a lot on the Find Coder, we are hosting a lot of hackathon and challenges. Can we host one hackathon online with your name on it, and just purely and purely based on FastAPI, and let's see what people can build using the FastAPI. Are you up for it?
That sounds fun. That sounds fun. We can chat about it later. But yeah, it sounds
Sure,
fun.
absolutely. We'd love to host one hackathon such that we'll take care of all the things. Just need your official permission that can we do it.
Cool.
No money involved from your side. We'll take care of everything from our own side.
Cool. We can talk about it later and like see how it will be and like think
Sure.
about it all.
Sure. Okay. One last question that I would like to throw up here from the Sachin. It says, "Why your nickname is Tangolu?"
So Triangolo comes. My name is Sebastián or Sebastian, like that's what people say in English, but it's from Spanish Sebastián. The end is Tian. So people used to just cut the name Sebas and use the last part, Tian, and then just call me Tian. And then they will call me Tian and just append random stuff. So it was Tian, Tiango, Tiangolo, and just like that. It was just like my family nickname, and it was always available in all the platforms. So like like Gmail, Yahoo, Twitter. So I just GitHub. I just got okay. This one works, so I'm just getting that. But now I cannot get rid of it. Now I have to keep it.
Your website
So,
is
yeah.
on that name. Your Twitter, like you're pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere with the same name.
So yeah, now I just have to keep it. I think the only one that was not available was Instagram. So it ended up what was it? Sebastiangolo, I think. Yeah, because I just joined too late, so they had already taken it. But yeah, so
Sure, sure.
it's not a fun story.
But really, great sharing, great thoughtful insight thoughts as well. And I truly, truly appreciate and thank you from the entire community of the coders and all the viewers. Thank you so much for creating so many great stuff. Please, please, please go ahead and create more stuff. We all are a big fan of your work, and we are keep on going to be using all of your work. So thank you so much for coming on the platform. Maybe we'll do such kind of a co-host or something later on in the future as well. But again, I know you are a busy man. I'll definitely try to get some more time out of you. But again, thank you so much. My deepest thanks from the entire community to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for staying and listening to my random ideas.
Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. That was a great conversation from the man behind the FastAPI, Typer, and tons of other projects, Sebastian, and hopefully to catch him up in the soon. So thank you so much for being here. Let's end this live up here. Bye bye, everyone.